Imagine you check into a New York City hotel with a colleague, someone you trust. You have been feeling strange for days, paranoid, unmoored. You don't know why. What you don't know is that 9 days ago, someone slipped a drug into your drink without telling you, without asking. At 2:30 in the morning, you go through the window of the 13th floor. Your name is Frank Olson. You work for the United States government. And what happened to you is only the beginning of the story. The year is 1953. The Cold War is not a metaphor. It is a genuine, bone-deep existential fear. American officials have watched Soviet interrogators seemingly break the wills of prisoners, extract impossible confessions, flip committed loyalists. They believe, sincerely, that the Soviets have found something. A technique, a drug, a method for rewiring the human mind. On April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles signs off on a program unlike anything the agency has ever attempted. It is classified top secret. It is given the codename MKUltra. And its mission, stripped of all bureaucratic language, is this: figure out if the United States can control a human mind, before the Soviets do. The man Allen Dulles puts in charge is a 35-year-old chemist named Sidney Gottlieb. He walks with a clubfoot. He holds a PhD from Caltech. He folk dances on weekends and farms goats in the Virginia hills. He is, by all accounts, genuinely devout. He is also about to run the most extensive, non-consensual human experimentation program in American history. Gottlieb operates under the bland title Chief of the Technical Services Division. What that actually means, over the next 2 decades, he oversees at least 150 distinct sub-projects, spread across 80 institutions, 44 universities, 15 research foundations, 12 hospitals, and 3 prisons. The CIA funnels money through front organizations with names like the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. The universities often don't know who is really paying the bills. The patients have no idea what is being done to them. Gottlieb is the center of all of it. So what were they actually doing? The CIA was dosing people, unwitting people, American and Canadian civilians, prisoners, mental patients, their own officers, with LSD, mescaline, heroin, barbiturates, sometimes for months or years at a time, without consent, without any medical follow-up. The theory was that extreme psychological stress and disorientation, the kind that high-dose psychedelics produce, might unlock some pliable, programmable state. The Manchurian Candidate made real. They never got there. What they got instead was a decade and a half of documented human suffering. At its peak, MKUltra's annual budget reached approximately $10 million, nearly $100 million in today's money, spent on dismantling the human mind. One sub-program captures the moral rot at MKUltra's core better than almost anything else. CIA operative George Hunter White rented apartments in San Francisco and New York and turned them into fake brothels. Sex workers hired by the CIA brought men back to these so-called safe houses. The men were dosed with LSD without their knowledge, and White, a federal agent, sat behind a two-way mirror, drinking martinis, watching, and writing it all down in meticulous logs. Operation Midnight Climax ran for a full decade, from 1955 to 1965. The men who were drugged never knew. White reportedly told a colleague before he died that he never regretted a moment of it. Frank Olson was not an anonymous victim. He had a name, a wife, 3 children, and a career as a U.S. Army biological weapons scientist. In November 1953, Sidney Gottlieb invited Olson and a group of colleagues to a retreat at Deep Creek Lake in Maryland. After dinner one evening, Gottlieb spiked the after-dinner drinks with LSD and told the men 20 minutes later, after it was already in their systems. Olson had no framework for what was happening to him. He became severely disturbed. 9 days later, in the early hours of November 28th, he fell from the window of room 1018 at the Statler Hotel in New York City. 13 floors. The CIA told his family it was a suicide. For 20 years, that was the official story. Then Frank's son Eric grew up, and he refused to let it end there. Eric spent decades arguing that his father had been murdered. Silenced, he believed, because Olson had witnessed illegal CIA activities at black sites in Europe and was preparing to speak out. In 1994, Eric had the body exhumed, Forensic pathologist James Starrs found a head wound consistent with a blow before the fall. The Manhattan District Attorney opened an investigation. No charges were ever filed. The case remains officially unsolved. What happened in Montreal may be the hardest part of this story to sit with. Dr. Ewan Cameron was no rogue operator on the fringe. He was the former president of both the American and the World Psychiatric Associations. He ran the Allen Memorial Institute at McGill University. He received covert CIA funding, funneled through a front organization, and he genuinely believed he was advancing psychiatry. What he did to his patients, people who came to him for help with depression, with anxiety, with ordinary human difficulty, is almost impossible to describe without sounding like fiction. He kept them in drug-induced sleep for up to 65 continuous days. He administered electroconvulsive therapy at voltages up to 75 times the standard therapeutic dose. He played looped recorded messages through speakers hidden under pillows or through helmets placed on their heads for up to 16 hours a day for weeks on end. He called it psychic driving. He believed he could erase a damaged personality and rebuild something better from the wreckage. What he actually did was erase people. Some patients emerged unable to remember their own names, unable to recognize their children, unable to perform tasks they had known their entire lives. Linda McDonald was 26 years old when Cameron finished with her. She had to relearn, from nothing, how to read, how to dress herself, how to use a toilet. MKUltra reached into lives you would never expect. In 1959, a writer named Ken Kesey volunteered for paid LSD experiments at the Menlo Park Veterans Hospital in California, the CIA paying him $75 a session. What Kesey experienced changed him permanently. He later stole supplies of LSD from the hospital, wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and became the catalyst for the American counterculture. The CIA had tried to build a weapon and accidentally ignited the psychedelic revolution of the 1960s. At the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary in 1957, a prisoner named Whitey Bulger volunteered for LSD experiments in exchange for time off his sentence. He claimed to have participated in 50 sessions and described nightmares that never left him for the rest of his life. The US government had dosed its future top FBI informant, one of the most violent organized crime figures in American history, as a research subject. And at Harvard between 1959 and 1962, a 17-year-old student named Ted Kaczynski was enrolled in psychologically abusive experiments run by a CIA-connected psychologist named Henry Murray. Kaczynski later named those years as formative trauma. He became the Unabomber. By 1973, MKUltra's official run was over, and CIA Director Richard Helms knew what was coming. Watergate was tearing apart the Nixon administration. Congressional investigators were circling closer. In January 1973, Helms ordered the destruction of MKUltra files. Not some of them, all of them. Hundreds of thousands of pages fed into shredders and incinerators. What Helms didn't know, what no one knew, was that approximately 20,000 documents had been misfiled years earlier. Not at CIA headquarters, in a financial records warehouse in Warrenton, Virginia. They sat there, untouched, for 4 years. Then in 1977, CIA auditors found them during a routine budget review. The discovery triggered a new round of Senate hearings. CIA Director Stansfield Turner testified. The full scope of the program, the safe houses, the unwitting subjects, the death of Frank Olson, the destruction wrought in Montreal, began coming into public view. Everything we know about MKUltra, we know because of a filing error. What came after? Senate hearings, carefully worded settlements, and silence. 8 Canadian plaintiffs reached a deal with the CIA in 1988, $750,000 total, divided among them, with no admission of wrongdoing. Roughly $93,000 each for having their minds dismantled. The Canadian government separately compensated 77 survivors, $100,000 Canadian apiece. No CIA officer was ever criminally prosecuted. Not one. Sidney Gottlieb retired to his farm in Virginia, raised his goats, folk danced, and died on March 7, 1999, 26 years after destroying the files, a free man. His identity as MKUltra's chief architect was shielded for years by a 1985 Supreme Court, ruling that protected the names of CIA research sources from public disclosure. Some researchers argue that the psychological techniques developed under MKUltra, sensory deprivation, the systematic destruction of identity, found new life decades later in post-9/11 CIA interrogation programs. The agency denies any continuity. A full accounting of what MKUltra did and to whom remains impossible. Most of the records are ash. Most of the victims never knew what had been done to them. And the man who designed all of it died in his bed, on his own terms, in the life he had built for himself, while the people he had experimented on spent the rest of their lives trying to remember who they used to be.